everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Magical Jill, and if I sound a little stuffed up, it's because I got sick, again, for the 50th time. Today I wanted to talk to you all about the fact that me and my husband Jay have started watching the original Dragon Ball, and it's my first time ever watching the show.
It's been quite a while since I've watched the original, and I didn't think it aged necessarily in terms of its, fights and looks and stuff, but I remember it being a little more simple than it was. So it's something I've really been enjoying as we've watched it, and I was worried you weren't going to like it as much as you do.
I really like it. I think it's very fun. I very much so love Goku. If you guys like this video, definitely subscribe, and I hope you guys comment down below what your favorite arc of the original Dragon Ball is, because I would love to hear what you guys have to say, because I really, really love this show so far, and I can't wait to watch more of it.
And we're going to make some more videos on it, too.
I really like the art style. I think that it's really cute that they have big foreheads and big eyes, and I think Bulma's really adorable. I really like it a lot. And I love how innocent Goku is, and how he's like so pure-hearted. He can sit on his little Nimbus cloud, and how he doesn't really understand anything about sex yet, or like all of these weird perverted jokes that they keep doing.
Which we're going to get into. I actually did want to ask you, though, what you thought about the deeper story here. Because I think a lot of people look at Dragon Ball and Z and Super, and I'll even throw GT in here in some of the movies, and they look at those things and they think, fighting anime. It's about fighting. Oh, look, the guy got a new hair color. And that's kind of the deepest that they go. But I really think there's a lot in this show and in the books as well about, friendship, overcoming evil, honestly breaking your own potential, like moving past what you think you're capable of.
I think it's really interesting that Goku kind of goes from this child in the woods to somebody who's able to make friends with people at a martial arts tournament. There's that one guy, I think his name was Garen, and he was this big angry monster that he had to go up against in the tournament, but eventually Goku kind of shows him how strong he is, and he starts to respect Goku. And then later on you actually see that character again, and he's nice to Goku and respects him and says, oh yeah, I can help you out with getting water for Nam's village, because I respect you and because, you beat me in the tournament. And I think it's really interesting that Goku is able to command respect from all of these people by being stronger, and being a good person and trying to help people.
A lot of the best parts of Dragon Ball are about character development. They're about watching characters get older, watching them change and get stronger, but not just stronger, like smarter.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of anime unfortunately don't do, but this one does really well.
I like that a lot. I like so far seeing how far Goku's come in the span of a year, because the first season takes place over about a year, where at first we see him doing the first saga of finding the Dragon Balls with Bulma, and meeting her, and meeting Roshi, and meeting pretty much all the main characters going forward. And then you see him actually start to come into his own and become more of a teenager, I guess, because towards the end of the season he's around 12 years old, and he starts to become much more of a person who's around that age rather than acting like a little boy.
Yeah, but he's still very innocent. I thought that something that was really interesting watching this show that you had no idea about, because I've tried to shield you from some spoilers. Obviously, the original Dragon Ball, very old now. It's the 80s compared to now when they're still doing Super, obviously the books and stuff. But something you thought was really interesting, and I remember just seeing the shock on your face, was the first time Goku turns into the Great Ape under the moon.
I was not expecting a whole King Kong werewolf moment here.
Yeah.
I did not. Of all of the things that I thought of Dragon Ball, I had no freaking clue that Saiyans would look at a full moon and become literally King Kong.
Well, because you know a little bit about the Saiyans, because it's permeated pop culture.
And I knew some of them had tails. Yeah.
But you had no idea that the Great Ape was part of their power set.
No, I didn't even know there was a Great Ape.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was crazy. And then they cut off Goku's tail, and I thought, oh, okay, so is this just how Goku loses his tail permanently? Because Goku doesn't have a tail in, all of the art that I've seen from Z.
Right.
And then he just grows his tail back later on in the season.
Well, that's the thing with Dragon Ball is you never really know what to expect. So our first time through the series, we're kind of going through the Toriyama canon. You know, basically following the books, essentially, with things like Dragon Ball, Kai, obviously, Super, things like that. But the second time we watch through this, we're going to watch through the old Toei timeline.
Yeah.
I kind of view them as separate entities. People will argue till the end of time about Dragon Ball canon. It might be an interesting video at some point if you don't mind death threats. People take it way too seriously. Way more seriously than Toriyama or anyone, I think, in Japan ever did. It's mostly a Western obsession with canon. But I think it's interesting because watching through this for the first time, obviously Dragon Ball itself is pretty much just in both timelines. I'm going to be very interested to see what you think about the two separations. There, you know, there's other timelines too, like Xenoverse, and there's Dragon Ball Heroes and all this stuff, but between these two animation ones, I'm going to be really interested to see your thoughts by the time we're through both, I guess.
So far, I really love it. So far, my favorite character is Goku. I just love... He reminds me of Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender, where he's so innocent and kind and young, and he just wants to help people. And he also reminds me of Usagi in a lot of those aspects as well. And then I really like all of the power that this young child has in him. And he doesn't even realize how incredibly, insanely powerful he is. He almost beat Master Roshi at his own game, pretty much.
Well, and something I wanted to mention to you about Goku that I never really talked to you about is he's actually loosely originally based off of the Monkey King.
Really?
Yeah, the myth of the Monkey King.
Really?
It's a inspiration of Goku. Obviously a young boy in the forest with a tail, extraordinary powers. You know, eventually it kind of becomes more about everything else. You know, the Saiyans and everything like that. But that was one of the inspirations of the original storyline.
That's really interesting,
which I thought you'd think was cool, because...
Yeah, I didn't put two and two together. That's interesting.
Well, and it's very easy not to, because I think the Monkey King is not as popular of a myth in Western culture as it is in Eastern.
It's very interesting, though. I'd have to look more into the Monkey King mythos, because I don't really know much about it at all. But I find that very interesting that it's based off of that, because... Also, Sailor Moon is based off of some mythoses about, like, rabbits being on the moon, sort of thing. And I love how a lot of these animes, like, take these old stories from their cultures and turn them into this wild story. And it is so amazing. I just love the imagination to it.
It's like the opposite of what Disney did with the Grimm's fairy tales, where they toned them down.
Yeah.
All of these manga and anime creators were like, what if we crank that up to 12?
Yeah!
And I always thought that was fun, too. But something you mentioned that I wanted to kind of guide us to in this discussion, our point with this is not cancel Dragon Ball. It doesn't match up to 21st century standards. How dare they? Feminism.
Well,
but
I think the biggest way this show aged is in the perverted stuff that it does.
Right, which I will say first off didn't really bother either of us.
No.
I think we are pretty hard to offend people for the most part, unless it's directed directly at us as people.
But I'm shocked with how popular Dragon Ball is, that people haven't gone back to cancel this show, because there's so much imagery of Bulma, who's 16 years old, being naked and flashing people, or flashing people without meaning to.
Well, and to be fair, here's the thing. Oh man, I'm gonna sound like the Discord mod justifying it, but
Oh no.
It's worth noting that the Japanese age of consent didn't change until I think 2023. It was, I believe, still around 13.
Oh.
Very low. Now here's the thing, it wasn't respected in most provinces though. You know how we have our country and then we have the states in it? You know, in Japan there's different regions and different rules that apply to those regions.
Yeah, they have their different laws.
But then there's the, you know, national law.
Yeah, okay,
and so
that
the
makes sense.
national age of consent was changed, but to that point, that's why it's always been kind of seen acceptable as, well, teenage girls are women.
Yeah.
You know, so for them, this wasn't like looking at a kid. And I think the way that she's drawn and depicted as a full-grown woman.
Yeah.
So it makes it kind of a nuanced discussion that's a little difficult to have. It's not something that really bothers me. It's something that certainly, though, if you went on Twitter and talked about how hot Bulma was in Dragon Ball Original,
you might get some crap, yeah.
You'd get some
especially
backlash.
in America.
But to Japan, this was nothing. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff with that too. Like obviously, you said Bulma flashed Roshi. Goku slaps everyone's crotch to see if they're a boy or a girl. That one...
He's still doing that. Even at the very end of season 1, he slapped Nam's crotch. Nam, whatever his name is. And Nam was like, oh my, why are you touching me there? In my culture, we just shake hands to say hello.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you're a boy. I couldn't tell. He's like, of course I'm a boy. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I like that he did that to Chi-Chi, and obviously, you know, he's a child, so he doesn't know.
But Chi-Chi thinks that means, oh, I'm in love with you. And so now she's obsessed with him, and I am so obsessed with that, because I do know that him and Chi-Chi get married.
I think where it becomes weird is Roshi always trying to grab people's asses like Launch.
Roshi is very weird.
But I love him.
I like him. I think he's really funny, but he is like probably the most problematic character out of all of them, with like trying to sexually assault women in every episode.
Yeah, but what's so weird is that in Japanese culture, and this was a big problem, by the way, groping. You know, to the point where they had to write up laws about it. I just think that in general, a lot of these characters, like a lot of the humor is very sexual, and it's non-consensual sexual. It doesn't bother me at all, but like this is a show that I think a lot of people love Dragon Ball partially because they didn't watch the original. Like, yeah. I love the original, and there's going to be arcs we get into that I think are amazing.
And I think it's really funny. I think Master Roshi is hilarious.
And we're right now getting into the Red Ribbon Army stuff, which is a little more serious than, you know, villains like Pilaf were. But I do think that that's something that's worth noting. You said, how do people love this show so much, when I think we could just say everybody's so sensitive now to this kind of stuff. Like in the West, in America and stuff.
I was shocked when watching this because I know how sensitive people are now to that sort of stuff. I thought, how could this possibly still be popular now?
Well, Saban, you know, the Saban Power Rangers and how Saban censored a lot of stuff and re-released it. A version of Dragon Ball that a lot of people who did see it in the West saw as a kid was the censored Saban version.
Where they didn't
which lacked a lot of this.
Yeah.
So I think that we're watching the DVD version, which was a nightmare to track down a legitimate copy of. We want to talk about that in the future with collecting Dragon Ball. But that, I think, is different because we're watching more of an uncut version. But, I mean, even in Japan, a lot of the rules have changed. Like, you can see Goku's wiener just out on display. I don't even think we can show it on YouTube, probably.
Every other episode he's naked.
Yeah,
like he just gets naked randomly.
Just take a bath.
Yeah,
because he's basically like a little monkey boy.
Yeah, and he doesn't care. He doesn't understand modesty yet.
Right.
And he doesn't really care about that. He doesn't really feel shame about his body or anyone else's bodies.
You know, that said, with all of this stuff that aged a little bit, I personally think it adds somewhat to the charm of Dragon Ball because it kind of gives you a time capsule into Japanese culture at the time, what was seen as acceptable and what wasn't. It gives you a little bit of a time capsule into what was acceptable on TV, you know, because back then they showed Goku's wiener on TV in Japan. It aired on TV for a show that a lot of kids watched. And no one cared. It kind of shows the blemishes of humanity a little bit. Like, it shows, you know, that it's not a show that pretends that everybody's perfect. Yeah. And I actually kind of like that. It shows
a lot of flaws with everyone, actually.
Yeah, and, like, even Roshi admits that his perversion's a flaw.
Yeah, he was supposed to take an oath to, like, not do that kind of stuff anymore. Right. And Turtle always reminds him of it. And he basically had Turtle sent away so he could, like...
get with Launch.
Have his way with, like, the women coming to his island.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, like, I just think it's really interesting how it shows, you know, a lack of perfection of the characters. Yeah. Goku is easily tricked. Bulma is an asshole a lot of the times who has an anger problem. Yamcha is terrified of women, but he goes on to kind of become a good person in some ways and a jerk in others. You'll see through his growth. You know, Oolong is Oolong.
Oolong is Oolong.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, these characters are not perfect. I actually think that adds to the charm of this show.
I do think Poir is pretty perfect.
Poir's the nicest little thing ever.
Poir is adorable and sweet and perfect in every way.
But something that I thought was really fun was the training arc.
Yeah, I thought this one was really interesting. At first, the methods are a little unorthodox, and you're kind of like, why in the world is Roshi having them deliver milk? And then as it goes on, you start to realize that he's making them do all of these weird things like deliver milk and do agriculture stuff because it's helping them get stronger. And he's making them wear weighted shells, like turtle shells, so that they have to kind of use more of their strength. And then when they take off the shell, they're able to jump higher and hit harder. And that's all Roshi's training is like centering your mind and going past the feats of what normal humans can do.
And that was his whole point, is breaking your own limitations. And that's something that comes up over and over and over again in this franchise. And it's why I think there's a lot more to it than just fight, get stronger. A lot of it's about pushing past what you as a person can do.
I loved seeing that with Goku, seeing Goku get stronger and making a friendship with somebody around his own age.
With Krillin.
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet to see him. You know, Krillin wasn't very nice to him at first and didn't really see him as a friend. But then Goku just kind of introduces him to everyone as, hey, this is my friend Krillin.
Yeah.
We're training together.
He just keeps pushing it.
Yeah.
That they're friends.
And then Krillin starts to really care about him. And I think it's really sweet. And that's just another reason why I love Goku. He's so kind, and he tries to be friends with everyone, even if he wants to fight them for fun. He's still trying to be nice to them in the end. And I really like that.
I was really impressed by the fights in this show. I know I've said several times it's about more than fighting, but when people think of Dragon Ball, they think of these crazy moves and power-ups and breaking your potential and things like that. I mean, to this day, Dragon Ball Super has been about that even. And I remembered watching this show and thinking, oh, these are fun fights, but getting to Z and thinking, whoa, these are nuts. But watching this again, I've really appreciated the action in the show. It's not always the most outlandish things ever, but you can see a steady escalation. I
loved seeing the multi-episode fight with him against Master Roshi. I mean, Jackie Chun.
Yeah, Jackie Chun.
And the fact that he's able to just pull out a full-on Kamehameha wave at Master Roshi, and like he didn't even have any training on that. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, he's a character who just keeps breaking his own potential, which I thought was really awesome. And they do escalate these fights, and they do get better and better action choreography. It's an interesting show because it starts more as a gag show, a little bit more as a part comedy, and even though that element remains, it keeps growing out of only that.
Yeah.
You know, it's become a lot more serious over time.
Yeah, I really like the show a lot. I think it's very interesting, and I love seeing Goku get stronger. At this point, he's only 12 years old, and he hasn't even really trained that much, and he's already as strong as Master Roshi, and pretty much would have beat him if it hadn't been for the fact that his legs are shorter than Roshi's.
Yeah.
In that last kick, which I think is really interesting. I also think it's really funny that he turns all King Kong Great Ape halfway through the fight with Master Roshi, and everybody thought that Master Roshi used his Kamehameha wave to kill Goku, and then they found out that it was actually he just destroyed the moon to make Goku turn back into a kid again, and then everybody's just fine with it. Nobody really cares that the moon's just gone. And now there's just no moon, and nobody talks about it. Like, what?
Well, the moon will come up again. I don't know. Overall, I love Season 1. I was going into it kind of thinking, not that I wasn't going to like it, but when we started watching it, I was thinking more like, well, I have to get through this to get more to the part of Dragon Ball original I like, which is the final couple of sagas, so probably the last 2 seasons. But I loved it.
I loved it too. I had a hard time not watching it, you know, like putting it down to go do work sometimes. It's something that I really enjoyed, and I kind of wished I could just sit and watch the whole thing all the way through. So I hope you guys all really enjoyed watching this video. I absolutely loved making it with my husband. I did want to mention I have this really cool shop called CosmoBunny.shop if you want to help support me. I make some really cool stuff made out of recycled manga pages and recycled comic book pages.
And wait, Jill, why would you take comic books and manga and ruin them?
Well, because a lot of places here don't recycle, like a lot of businesses, because it's too expensive, and sometimes things like comic books or things like manga get too damaged to be able to sell, whether it be in shipping or they're pre-owned, and sometimes these places just throw them in the garbage.
Or sometimes they're nice enough to just give them to us.
So I usually will do things like get stuff like that that's too damaged to sell, and I'll turn it into art, so that way it doesn't have to go into a landfill, and then I'll actually recycle the parts of it that I don't use.
Yeah, it's like double recycling.
Yeah.
But these things are really fun for your home: coasters, keychains, trays, and you also do as well make handmade beaded jewelry.
I do take commissions on that as well, so you guys should definitely look at that because I'm coming out with a new spring collection soon, which is really fun, and I love making jewelry. It's one of my biggest passions. So I hope you guys subscribe and leave a comment down below.
And we better end this because Jill's voice is going.
And I'm sorry that I was so sick during this video. I get sick like literally every other month. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!